So we're running around, we're building businesses, raising kids, maybe caring for aging parents, and suddenly we're not sleeping well. Maybe we start gaining some weight. We're feeling exhausted. We're mentally foggy, a whole host of things. And then suddenly one day, we go to the doctor and we're diagnosed with something and it turns our world upside down. Well, if you can relate to any of that, I lived it. I transcended it, not once, but twice. My name is Susan Sly. I am a certified coach, a speaker, a trainer, author, and I do these Monday Lives with the goal to contribute to all of you. One of the most frequently asked questions I have gotten, whether it's been on ABC Family, Lifetime Television. When I did a show called Times Square Today, it aired on CNN, CNBC, Fox, whatever it is Susan, how did you transcend an MS diagnosis? How did you transcend Lyme disease? And I'm here to tell you today all of my quote unquote insider secrets. There's nothing really secret. I'm happy to share anything with you. And for those of you who come and you watch these and you're hoping for business inspiration and those how-to kind of techniques, this is probably exactly what you need, because the reality is if we don't have our health, we're not going to be much good. And so my goal is to inspire you today. It's just to give and to serve. And it's, if you are going through something, or if you have someone, a friend who's going through something, it's my hope you'll share this live with them, just so they can be uplifted and inspired and maybe get some hope. So before I do that, hey Bruce and Linda and Hadass and everyone, I just want to share a couple of quick announcements. So on Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock Pacific, I'm doing a training called 5 Ways to Generate Free Leads. Now, generally speaking, as many of you know, I have a digital marketing company, and I love to really help entrepreneurs connect with their ideal clients and customers through a variety of creative ways. And so I'm going to be sharing with you some of the ways you can do that. We'll also have a couple special guests who are really crushing it, and I think you'll love it. So you can check it out. There is a link on this page, and I would love to invite you to join me Tuesday at 6 o'clock, and I'll post it right after this. On September 29th, I am going to be doing a live event here in Phoenix. I was really sick for about 3 years, and I'll be getting into that in a moment. And I haven't done my own live event where I've put it on and I've trained. It's several years. I used to do an event called the Have It All Woman, and it was 4 intense days, and we really had amazing breakthroughs and just such growth. It was so powerful. And so I used to host that event. I did it 16 times. And then, I haven't done my own events in a long time, especially just not feeling well. And there's no way you can give from a well that's empty. But now that I'm recovering, the first thing I said to my team was, I'm back and I want to put on something. So I'm actually going to be doing an event called Sales Nirvana. Sales Nirvana is an event where I'll be teaching you NLP techniques, neuro-linguistic programming, the same stuff people like Tony Robbins use and different people use, and to help you create better relationships with your clients and customers. So whether you're writing, you're blogging, you are doing live interactions, or you're doing videos, whatever it is, how do you create those connections? And so the thing I love about this event is it's really great for anyone in sales. And I was just at a networking event Friday night, and there was this gal there who's a single mom, a realtor. Her first year, she just crushed it, and she's so excited to be coming. She's like, it's exactly what I need. So if you're in real estate, you're in direct sales, you're in digital marketing, you're a health practitioner, this is going to be a great event for you. So that is at the Biltmore Embassy Suites, and you can check it out on salesnirvana.com. Oh, and another one, next Monday night, I am teaching a class on copywriting. So a little bit about my background writing copy. So many years ago, I used to do a lot of copywriting for a specific charity. And I also, that was a national charity, but I also have done a lot of sales copy, and I will be teaching copywriting. What is the hook? How do we take someone from a headline to the next sentence? How do we use our copywriting in our blogging and our emails and our posting and that kind of thing? It is going to be workshop style. You will want to bring a pen, and we're physically going to work, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Even how you do your About Me section on any of your social media, you will benefit from that. And so that you can find out more about on thesoulofselling.com, thesoulofselling.com. And again, it is workshop style. It is going to be very applicable. It's 2 hours with me. We are going to work. And I love doing these intimate teaching events because no matter what it is you do, you can always work to improve your copy. So check that out. So I'm going to get into it today. How many of you know someone who has struggled with their health? You know, how many of you know someone who maybe that health struggle, they've just kind of pushed it down and then suddenly gotten to the point where with regard to their health, something really serious happened. And, you know, that was me back in, you know, I was never the healthy kid. And in this Facebook Live today, I'm going to get very intimate, very raw, very real, and just share with you a little bit about my journey. But I'm also going to share with you some of the things I did to really transcend it with hopes that you'll pass along that information. So I was one of these kids, I was never, ever healthy. I was born, I was put in an oxygen tent right away. I wasn't breathing. And then it started as a little girl. You know, I was on asthma inhalers and courses of prednisone. You know, it caused me to balloon up. By the time I was 10 years old, I was a women's size 14. And you can only imagine how humiliating that was. I grew up in a town called Brockville, Ontario. And, you know, as great as the town was, I was bullied a lot. I was called a lot of names. I was shamed. Childhood obesity wasn't as, you know, as common as it is today. Sadly, it's so much more common than it was then. But there I was sticking out. You know, I didn't look like the other kids. I was being raised by a single dad and I was really heavy, always having to take these inhalers. And I remember I went to this public school, a Commonwealth public school, and we had this dirt hill in the middle of the field. And I think they've since leveled it, I'm not sure, but for cross-country practice, we used to have to run around the field and up the dirt hill. And there I was running up the dirt hill, my thighs rubbing together, out of breath, panting, the, you know, fat rolls going up and down, biting back the tears. And I was in last. And the kids used to call me Bubba Sue. That was my nickname. And that's why I don't go by Sue anymore, because it just has these negative connotations for me. But I made this decision one day when I was running up that hill. I said, I am never, ever, ever going to go through this again. And that was in grade 6. And that summer from grade 6 going into grade 7, I went to extremes. I stopped eating. I would have a Diet Coke and lettuce and saltine crackers. I would exercise twice a day. And I did all the wrong things to lose all of the right weight. And so I came back in grade 7 and I had lost many sizes over the summer. And I went from being chosen last for softball to being chosen, you know, to one of the top 3 to be chosen. I went from coming in last in cross country with all the fat rolls to actually becoming a really great runner and going on to go into an elite running program and representing my province and then competing at the junior national level in track and field. And so I made this decision then that the only way, and if you're taking any notes, because we have to understand, and as a certified coach, I want to share this with you, we build these programs, and these programs are based on our experiences. And so there I was, and I learned this lesson that, so I thought, that in order to be healthy, I had to go to extremes. Okay, and I had started to run when I was 11 years old, and I'm 45 now, so I've been running for 34 years. And so I thought I had to go to extremes, 2 workouts a day, eating nothing. Can you imagine, right? So there I was running this program. So fast forward time, I become like a pretty decent runner, and I go into college, and I'm in not the healthiest relationship. I start to gain a lot of weight. And what do you think my program is telling me? Who can tell me? What's the program? What's the program? Trudy, Bruce, what's the program? In order to get healthy, I have to go to extremes. So what did I do? What worked before? I, stopped eating. I worked out twice a day. And, it's amazing when you have that level of focus, because it takes, in my personal opinion, it took me the same amount of commitment to lose the weight as it did to gain all the weight. There I was, losing the weight in the unhealthy way, and I started to get sicker and sicker and sicker. But it's amazing when you're so obsessive, there are certain sports that are super conducive. And I no offense to any of my friends who've ever done professional triathlon like I did, but when you like to work out 2 or 3 times a day, it's great. You might as well become an Ironman triathlete, and that's what I did. So in my early 20s, I owned my own health club. I bought it when I was 24 years old. I negotiated the last $10,000, the loan I needed while I was in labor for my daughter. I took over that health club, and when an instructor didn't show up, I taught the class, whether it was cardio, kickboxing, or yoga, or whatever it was, I taught it. So I was racing professional triathlon, teaching 7 classes a week, teaching at my local college. I was a professor of nutrition. I was also seeing clients, so I had some very well-known clients back in those days. Some of the Tragically Hip were my clients. If you're Canadian, you know who they are. So, Bobby, Johnny, those guys were my clients. Love those guys. They're amazing work ethic. Love them. Kirk Muller, the NHL hockey player, is my client. So you can only imagine, I'm working out a few times a day. I'm teaching all these classes. I'm a mom. I'm running a health club. I've got 54 employees. And because I was running this program that I had to go to extremes to get healthy, suddenly my program was broken because I was going to all these extremes, but I wasn't getting healthier. And I started dropping things. I'd be writing on the chalkboard and I'd drop the chalk. I started slurring my speech. I was tired. I would get numbness and tingling in my legs. I would forget things. And so I went to my doctor and I said to him, listen, I'm not feeling good. And he said, Susan, I think it's just stress. And I was like, yeah, right. He said, you need to go on vacation. So I went on vacation, and I go on vacation, I'm in Jamaica, and I start feeling bad. And I actually spent 7 days in bed. Like, I wasn't dancing and there's no beach volleyball. I was just exhausted. And I came back and I felt worse. And I took in a little yellow Post-it note of the list of tests I wanted. And I said to him, listen, you come to me when you want to know what to eat. You come to me when you want to know what exercise to do, how to train. And I said, I'm coming to you. These are the tests I want. This isn't just stress. So we go into the year 2000, that was December 1999. And back in those days in the town I lived in, to get an MRI, it would take months and months and months. But fortunately, my client, her husband was the head of neurology. I was able to get in for my MRI. And my doctor called me in his office in January, and he said, Susan, I've looked at your scan. And he held it up, and it looked like a fishbowl full of fish. And he said, Susan, this is progressive multiple sclerosis, and you are going to be dead in 20 years, in a wheelchair in 10. I'm so sorry. And he was deeply, deeply upset. And, I haven't told this story a lot openly because I was denied health coverage in the US, even though I take no medication. So I'm just being bold right now and calling out that health insurance company where I was paying a fortune. I take no medications for MS, but I was denied coverage for openly sharing my story. So even openly sharing this story with you right now, my current healthcare provider might go, Susan, I'm not giving you coverage, but I wanted to do it today and just be bold because I hope it's going to inspire you. So I go home and I'm devastated, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to run the Boston Marathon. That was one of my dreams. I haven't come top 10 in the pro division of the Ironman yet. That was another dream. What am I going to do? I'm going to be in a wheelchair with my daughter. This is horrible. And for 3 days, I went and I had a pity party. And then, a whole bunch of other life events happened. I was married before my marriage fell apart. I had to figure out what to do with my staff. My business just went into shambles, and I walked into my health club on Good Friday, and there was a padlock on the door, and we had been closed down. During this whole time, I was diagnosed with shingles. I went to Alabama. I ran the Powerman Alabama. We all have 15 minutes of fame. There I am running out in front. I have shingles, and I passed out on ESPN. All of this happened in a 16-week period, but during that time, A friend of mine said, Susan, you define yourself by all of these things, the car you drive, the business you own. I was on television every single Monday through Friday. Back then, I was on radio on the weekends. I was writing for magazines. I had written at that point for Oxygen magazine, some other magazines. And, here's the interesting thing. Oxygen Australia. I just want a PS postscript there. But here's the interesting thing. He said, you define yourself by all of that, but if you lost everything tomorrow, who would you be? And that's the first key I want to give you to transcending any illness, whether you have been diagnosed with a terminal illness or you're just running a little cold, or maybe you're a woman and you've been working your business 7 days a week and you have adrenal fatigue and you aren't sleeping and you're gaining weight and you're a train wreck, but you're showing up and you're doing calls and you're on Zooms and you're Mary Sunshine, but you feel like garbage and you're promoting health or whatever you're doing. The first tip I want to give you is you have to know who you are. And so I went for a long bike ride. I went out, if you're a Canadian, 56 kilometers. So I go for this 56-kilometer bike ride, and I'm like biking and meditating and praying, and God, who am I? Who am I? And it finally came to me who I was. And once I had that knowing in my spirit, I was able to transcend, and I lost everything. I was $100,000 in debt. My brother-in-law, Ian, took me in. I lived on his sofa. I was humiliated. I went and I had to get a job because, how do you raise a kid and put your life back together? So after a very public losing of everything, there I am. And I went and I interviewed for this job with a health club chain, and I had amazing references, and I showed up, and suddenly I was thrust into being a sales manager with a team of about 50 plus people with monthly quotas. And yet I still had MS, obviously. I was having flare-ups every 3 weeks. I was exhausted. I didn't tell my coach or my sponsors for triathlon that I was sick. So I'm training for pro triathlon. I'm running a sales team. I'm still seeing clients. And I wasn't learning my lesson, which was if I go to extremes, I'm going to get healthy, right? That was the whole program I was running. And if you come work with me on September 29th, even though it's going to be focused on sales, at the end of the day, I'm going to teach you how to break any limiting belief, and we're going to dissolve some of your programs. I'll do some live coaching right in the room. It's going to be amazing. And so I very quickly took my sales team to #1 out of 444 health clubs. My Canadian sales dollars were converted from US sales dollars. So back in those days, the dollar was about 60 cents. So imagine I had to earn $1.40 for every dollar my US counterparts were earning. And so I'm, going along. And this is my second message. I fired any doctor that told me I was going to be in a wheelchair. And I fired any doctor that told me that there could only be one outcome. And I love health practitioners. I love physicians. I wanted to be one. And that isn't about you. That was just about my choice. I needed to surround myself with practitioners who were open to looking for other ways to help support me. And so I found an amazing medical doctor in Toronto, and she was incredible. She's like, Susan, this does not look good, but there are other things you can do. And so she, worked with me. We got my hormones functioning. We did a lot of vitamin therapies, and I started to feel better. And then by 2003, I was, in a position where I was not taking medication, but get this, I knew who I was. I was #2. I was putting together the right team. And #3, I was working on myself. I was reading so many books, Tony Robbins, Napoleon Hill, Robert Kiyosaki. And here's the funny thing, except for Napoleon Hill, Jack Canfield. I've now, fast forward time, I've done a lot of speaking events where these guys have been speaking. On my, it was a Sony Walkman, on my Walkman every morning, it was just good stuff in. I was listening to a lot of my friend Jeffrey Combs. It was just like constant good stuff, downloading. It was, everything was about who I could be, what I could transcend. Because the next tip I want to give you is you have to look for evidence that transcending is possible. And that's an NLP technique we use to break a limiting belief. And I remember when Wayne Dyer was alive, I was going through the airport in Maui, and he called me and he said, "Hey, Susan, have you seen the video of Anita Moorjani?" And I said, "No, Wayne, I haven't seen this video from Anita Moorjani." And Anita Moorjani transcended stage 4 cancer, and she actually flatlined on the table, and she came back. And shouts out to Anita Moorjani. And I've watched her videos several times. I've never been diagnosed with cancer, thank God, but I've sent it to many people who have been. And there, he was always looking for evidence that transcension was possible. And so I was invited to go to a lot of MS support groups, but I didn't go. I didn't go because and shouts out to any of you who've gone, but I didn't want to sit in a room with people complaining about their legs being numb or this icy cold pain or slurring their speech or whatever. I only wanted to be surrounded by healthy, happy, positive people. And so that's what I did. The next thing I did was I really changed my diet, and I started detoxing. I switched to becoming a vegetarian. I do eat a little bit of fish from time to time. Tons of vitamins all the time. I do occasionally go for vitamin IVs. I drink tons of water. I can't even begin. Like, it's lots of vegan, protein shakes. I take a handful of vitamins in the morning, a handful of vitamins at night. And I have an amazing medical team, and that's part of it. I have an MD, I have a DO, I have an acupuncture doctor, I have a chiropractor, and people say to me, "Well, Susan, it's easy because you can afford it." But you know what? When I lost everything, and even back in 2003, we were living on $32,000 a year, and I had 2 little kids. I didn't have a ton of money. That's when I used that time to work on my mindset. And as I worked on my mindset, the money came. And that's the thing. I see a lot of sick people who use their illness as an excuse and a crutch. But I made a decision that that's not how I was going to be. I was going to be different. And I knew if I kept pouring that goodness in, the money would come, and it did. And then I knew that, I used to have this dream that I could afford to get a massage every week, because with MS, your muscles get sore and stuff like that. And, it's fun because now I can do that. And I'm so grateful to God. But that was working on my mindset, doing the work, being able to transcend, changing the diet. So it's all well and good, and I'm going along, and I'm working on myself, and I'm doing all these things. And then, back in 2015, we went to Mexico over Christmas with some friends, and I came back and I thought, something's not right. And then fast forward, and I start running a fever, and I'm getting really dizzy, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've got a brain tumor, what's going on? And I had to go to Africa on an emergency trip because Maggie, my oldest daughter, was having a baby, and I ate something there. I've been to Africa many times, and I came back and I was literally in bed. And during this whole time, I went to see some different doctors. One told me it was all in my head. I'm running a fever. I'm nauseous. I can't focus. I was driving my car one day, and I'm like, where am I going? And why am I going there? I get on Zoom meetings, and I was like, what am I talking about? Why am I here? And this doctor told me it was all in my head, and he handed me a book on personal development. I'm like, I do speaking events where Tony Robbins is also speaking. I've shared the stage with Jim Rohn the last time he spoke live. I do events for women where we're literally, doing, breaking hunting arrows on their throats, and, helping them break through. I don't think that's it. And then another doctor was like, it's just PMS. And I'm like, really? Are you freaking kidding me? And so again, I went through this process, and my next tip that I want to give you is don't settle. One doctor wanted to remove my uterus. I still have my uterus. So don't settle. And so one of the things I did is I started to just get open about my health. And I, started to talk to some girlfriends, and they were like, this person might have the answer, that person, whatever they told me, I would do it. And so finally, I was literally in bed, and my girlfriend, Lisa DeMeo, who I'm doing an event with, her and Kathy Savage on September 8th in New York, and I want you to check it out, Empowered Women Unite. It's going to be amazing. Suggest I go to New York, and I went for some testing, and it turned out I had an amoeba, and it was shutting down my organs. And during that whole process of all this testing, I got diagnosed with Lyme disease, 4 out of 9 strains of Lyme. And so then embarked antibiotics and IVs and treatment and electromagnetic frequency therapy and, a whole host of things. And, I just recently was it March? I came back and I had no Lyme disease and there was no evidence of anything else in my body. And now I'm just in the cleanup phase. And so, doing that, it was really tough to be able to navigate all of that. And I had to also deal with a lot of judgment because I couldn't show up in the same way I was showing up. But during this time, I was still growing my businesses. I was still doing Zooms with people and calls with people. And I was still, trying to do the very best I could. And, several people felt I didn't do enough for them. But the same people who felt I didn't do enough for them never bothered to reach out and go, what's going on with you? I haven't heard from you. Are you okay? And that leads me to the next tip. If you've been diagnosed with something, you've got to make it a full-time, part-time job. Because I did, going for treatment was a full-time, part-time job. Making sure that I could get the right nutrition in my body was a full-time, part-time job. Making sure that I had all of the support I needed, going to all of the appointments was a full-time, part-time job. And I said to my husband, for these 2 years, it's my full-time, part-time job. And it was. And I'm still in the recovery, but now I'm not nauseous every day. Now I'm sleeping through the night. Now my energy is coming back. And I had 3 doctors who told me that I should have died. And I'm so grateful for all of the amazing healthy habits that I have because obviously I'm still here with you. And, I really wrestled with being as bold and transparent today. As I said, I lost health coverage because I was very transparent about talking about MS, and maybe I'm going to get a call from my healthcare provider and say, we're not insuring you anymore, because in America that can happen. But I hope this has really inspired you, and I hope it's helped you. And I want you to know that you can transcend, but you're going to have to get clear. You have to know who you are. You have to put the good stuff in your mind. You have to only listen to people who tell you there are possibilities. You have to take care of your nutrition. You can't be putting junk in your body that's loaded with preservatives and artificial colors and all those things. You're going to have to journal. You're going to have to work on yourself. You're going to have to surround yourself with the right people. You might have to cut some people out of your life who are super negative. And most importantly, you're going to have faith. The number one reason I'm here is my faith in God. And, I can promise you 100% of the time that if it wasn't for that, I don't know where I would be today. So hopefully this has helped you. Hopefully if it has, I would love for you to share it. I want you to know that you are an overcomer. You really can transcend. I have met amazing people who've gone beyond all sorts of things. But as long as you're staying in victim, you're negative, you think this is the only option for you, you're not going to transcend. So hopefully this has been helpful. I do read all of your comments. I was going to teach on something different today, but there was this still small voice going, tell this story, tell this story, tell this story. So hopefully this has benefited you. So with that, God bless, take care, and I will see you next time.